Okay, so hello and welcome back to another Unity tutorial. In this one I'm going to be showing you Shader Forge, which is a free asset for Unity that was made by person I can't pronounce the name of, so I'm not even going to try. Basically, this person created this asset for Unity, and it's like if you've used Unity Shader Graph or there's other shader editors. It's basically a visual editor for shading, so that you can make shaders without knowing shader code. And in the past, I made shader graph videos, which is Unity's newer version, like their own version. The problem is with shader graph, there's quite a few problems. One, it's quite limited. Two, it's quite inefficient, and if you actually look at the code that the graph spews out, it's just, you can't even read it. It's just a mess. At least this add-on, actually, the code that it gives out is readable and it's not a mess. Obviously, it's probably not the most. It's not like 100% efficient, but it is still really efficient. And also, I did make some shader graph videos at the start, and I got to the point where people were asking for videos on making shaders with that graph, but there was stuff that were like you couldn't even do with the graph. There wasn't enough, like that they just hadn't developed it enough. And then the problem is now that they've updated it, and I've just not been using it because it's not helpful enough. Even if you can do it now, I don't even know how. And I've seen a lot. There's not. I haven't seen many people making anything good of it because it's still limited by quite a bit. But this is still amazing now. It used to be paid, and the person who made it, sold it and made quite a bit of money. But then they've said that they want to work on something else, so they've been really generous and they've basically made it free, and they've made it open source so anyone can go look at the code of it. Now, what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to show you how to install and set it up, because it's not the simplest thing. It's quite simple, but it's not the simplest. Show you how to set it up, put a basic shader on something, and then I'll start doing some more videos on making shaders with Shader Forge, but we can get into more interesting and cool things because it's actually got the features to do it. Like in shader graph, we had to wait ages for them to get vertex displacement, and even then it was extremely limited, but everything it says on here we already have by default. So I'll just get into this, show you how to install it, and mention the problems along the way that you might have when installing it and how to avoid them. So first of all, search Shader Forge, obviously, and if you search Shader Forge, you'll come up with the asset store as well, and you think, oh, I'll just grab it off the asset store, but it's not actually on the asset store anymore. It's just on his website. So go into the Shader Forge website, go to Shader Forge on GitHub, and when you're on GitHub, you'll see here it is, here's the project, whatever, and you can click clone or download the zip, and there you go. So you'll get a zip folder, and it's pretty big because it's the whole asset. I don't know exactly how big, but anyway. So you get the Shader Forge asset. Now I've got it in my downloads folder. You'll have it as a zip file, so you'll have to, folder. So you have to unzip it, which I'm sure you're capable of doing, how to unzip a file. Then you'll get it like this. And inside here is the add-on. It's got it looks like a proper Unity project assets, whatever. You want to basically take this Shader Forge, this file here. You don't need the README, that just tells you the license. That's on the website as well. But anyway, take this Shader Forge folder. Sorry, I keep saying file, and put that into your project. Now that might take a bit, depending on how big the actual how big is it actually? I could right click on it, but I can't this second because it's currently transferring the files. But basically, what we'll do is we'll actually make a basic shader, and I'll show you the code for it. And then maybe in the next video when I have one prepared, I'll actually show you the code of a shader graph, and you'll just see why it's so much worse. At least with this, you can, once you've made a shader, you can then go look at the code for it, and you can start to make sense of it. Because it's actually really well made, because what it does is he actually has it commented in the code it spews out to show you what part does what, and it's really good. It just has more features, and you really should use it instead, in my opinion. So click you made a backup. Now, you're going to get errors, okay? I'm in Unity, 2018.2.3. Now, that's not the latest unit version. It's the second to latest. I'm not sure. It's out of all the build releases that are actually stable and everything, that's the second most recent or the third. I'm not 100% sure right now. Alright, so get rid of the normal errors. Now, you're going to get actual errors, and you can't do anything until you've fixed your compile errors. So basically, if you open up Visual Studio or any of these scripts for problems, as you see, it basically says something's been deprecated, or as you see here, built-in support for that is gone. So simply, the way to fix it is just remove the code that uses it. Now, don't just go and delete all the code, because then your asset won't do anything, because it won't be working. Now, all you need to do is remove the little bits that care about. There's this one particular thing which isn't supported with it anymore, and I looked around the internet and there doesn't appear to be an actual fix. So what you'll need to do is you need to go through these error messages one at a time, and you'll see, okay, this function that does that, yeah, we can't do it anymore because this function doesn't, like, you'll see here, blah blah is obsolete. Use that from the asset store, but you can't really. So just delete the function for that. Save. Go to the next one. This function we can't really use if we don't have that. So now this doesn't actually break the asset. Don't worry. This is just stuff that wouldn't work anyway. So you'll see that in here we have an if, and it says this or this or this. So all we have to do is just get rid of the or that checks that. And same here, get rid of the or that checks that. And then there's one down here. So just, it says else if. So this else if statement, you can just get rid of that and it'll still let the rest of it work. 'Cause it's if this, else this now. We just don't want anything to do with that, basically. Now just pick random ones. So else if this, go away. Still works. Get rid of the or. You don't have to do it in the same order as me. So that's an if, but there's no point checking the if we can't do anything with that. I think there's an extra, yeah, there's extra bracket there. Get rid of this or. Obviously, I like this. The actual code for the shader asset is beyond me. Never made an asset or like looked into this stuff. Oh, that's some of the stuff I've already fixed. So we've only got 4 errors left. So there's an or here with it, and or here with it. And there's one up here. So get rid of this else if. And you know, usually if you go around messing with like libraries or any like asset, you're gonna break stuff if you just start deleting. But I've made sure when I did this myself for my own project that this is definitely fine. Now this problem might only happen with newer versions of Unity because it's the asset hasn't been updated since. But there's no, like, it still works properly. So anyway, we've got no errors now. Let's get rid of that. Bang. Okay, can we press play? So now we've got the asset installed, and we also can play our scene. And as you'll see, if you go into Shader Forge, the folder, I keep saying file, I need to stop doing that. We'll have assets, Shader Forge, example scene, and just go load this example scene. Now here we go. So here's the example scene they give you, showing off some of the shaders that they've made. So just have a quick look around. They've made a material here, well, a shader for material called Pixel Rotator that actually, it literally just rotates pixels. Now, if you don't know already, shaders, they basically, it's shader, yeah, I'll start again. Shaders are code that's ran for every pixel to determine what color it is, basically. So it outputs an RGBA value, so obviously the red, green, blue, alpha. So this code, whatever's on this shader here for this material, is getting run on every pixel of the thing, and he's made it so that, presumably using a time module, which is just a thing, so it's just a value that's constantly increasing. He changes the position, and I'll look into it at some point, but he's made that. He's also made vegetation shader, so as you see, it's like a bush leaf thing. Now, if we actually look at the mesh for the plant, so you'll see, obviously that's with no material on it, but that's basically the grass, well, that is the mesh that it's using. And then what the shader does is, it slowly makes it move realistically, and it just looks really nice. Obviously, that might not be the right style for your game, but still, we've got like a vegetation shader, it's got shadows and everything, it just looks really nice. Now here's a pretty interesting one. We've got like a pipe that looks like it has something moving along it, and it uses a vertex offset to basically make it look like something's moving through the pipe. So like wherever it's doing the red bit, it's also pushing out the vertices, which looks really nice actually. Then he's also made a glass shader. This is something someone asked for ages ago, so I'll be doing a video on it. It's so obviously ignore the frame. The frame isn't like, you know, that's not important. It looks better because it's a window. This glass actually makes every pixel that's through it get rendered differently, because that's how shaders work. Obviously, it'll say, well, if this pixel basically is through this object, then it'll get rendered differently. So they've got a map on it, a bump map. So this one here, this blue-looking thing, I'll go into, because I'll assume that people are watching this are quite new to shaders as well. A bump map is basically, well, by default, every object is flat. You know, this plane is flat. It's completely flat, but it looks bumped. and that's because this map that looks weird, bluey, purpley, that tells the game how light should shine on it. So if I got rid of this, I assume it'll still work. As you see, it everything is perfectly flat on it now. But if we give it a texture, it will like the shader forge. Like obviously, it uses this text now. It's not designed for it, obviously. But you can use whatever you want as the map for like distorting things through it. So obviously using this weird circle texture just makes like a circle thing. It doesn't look right, but you get what I'm saying. Now let me just go back to the intended one. So that basically tells light how to refract on it, and it just looks really nice. Like for an actual mirror, that just looks really good. And by mirror, I mean window. Then we've got tessellation here. Like these are all just examples. So basically, it's kind of reading the mesh, changing as you move along it. Now, as you see, he's also got this extension that he's made just to have tags on these things, which look pretty cool. You can actually just look into that. It's a script in it called editor label. It's not the most complicated. We've got vertex colored. So that's basically the further away it is from here, the more black it gets in the different colors in the different corners. So that's just like looking at an actual color selector. What here might have color? I don't know actually. Does that have color? Yes, it's just like a color wheel on here, but they looks a little bit different to how this is laid out. Parallax mapping. I don't use parallax. Well, I say don't use it. I mean I've not really looked into it, so I will look into parallax. And if you look along here, actually, we've got custom lighting. So as you know, light is normally red. It looks smooth like that, but you can actually tweak that yourself. You can also tweak the power of it and so on. Like last time I just did videos on how to make a shade that looks like this, but now I'm going to do videos on how to make like lighting and shadows and everything. Now as you see, this person's got like an outline shader which someone asked for on 3D objects, and it works really well. But I struggled to make that in ShaderGraph because at least at the time it wasn't really possible because it was just there wasn't enough in it, like all the nodes. Now I'm going to show you the actual shader forge in a second, just showing you what's possible. Like these are just some examples. So let's just go to a sample scene, like the one we get given. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to create an object, so 3D object sphere. Just reset it because I always have a habit of doing that. Okay, here is the sphere. Now I might as well just set the camera. Okay, someone told me to just remember the shortcut for doing that, so I should probably do that. So it's Control-Shift-F. That wasn't even on the camera. Control-Shift-F. There we go. I'm going to try and remember that shortcut. So now we're going to write a shader for this. So what you should do is to write a shader, assuming everything's working fine, you've got no errors, whatever. If you go up to Window, you'll see on here you now have Shader Forge. So click on Shader Forge and you get a lovely window. You can dock it just like normal. I think the best way I've seen of using it, I mean, obviously you could have it as an external window. If you've got a second monitor, it's best to do that, which I do. But because I'm doing a video, obviously I'm not going to put it on the other monitor. So I've seen people put it down on the bottom one here and have it like this. This is a good way to see it because you can watch it happen live. Now, you do actually get a preview inside Shader Forge, but it's a bit better to see it in your actual scene when you're tweaking. So basically you've got different options here. Obviously the only ones you ever click on really are new and load. So we're going to click on new. You get an option for like preset things. So when you click on these, all the settings will be tweaked to be, you know, good for post-processing or whatever. And we'll go through making particle shaders and post-processing shaders in this. But for now, we're just going to make our own from complete scratch. So the best way to start from scratch is click unlit. And we'll just call this shader, like, you know, tutorial 01. And here we go, we got a blue shader. Now, it doesn't actually render blue, but we'll see. So if you click on, I don't know, I've obviously used the asset before and it might have tweaked the settings, but it's good to have rotate on because this is obviously it's flat blue right now, but it's rotating so you can see a good lot. You can see all the way around it, so you know what it looks like from all angles. You can also drag to rotate. You can see what it looks like on different meshes, but we're going to stick with sphere because we're previewing a sphere here anyway. Auto basically just means that whenever you make a change, it compiles right away, or you can just leave it off and do it yourself. You can also tweak the background skybox settings if you want. Well, no, sorry. If you turn off skybox, you can tweak the settings or use the skybox. So you can just see what it looks like on a different background or just use skybox. Now we'll turn on rotate. So let's just get rid of that node by default. So what have we got here? We've got, it just looks like a shader graph kind of. You know, actually, this might be hard to see on the video if I have it all the way down here. So what I'll do is I will put it full screen, bring it out. So there you go. So we've got our main node. This is as much as it lets you zoom in, by the way. So this main node, anything that goes in here is what the material actually changes to be. So we just got black nothing, because as you know, zeros in code is black, 1 is white. So if we've got nothing being plugged in, it's just every pixel's black. The blackest it can be. There's no lighting, there's no shadows from it. So what we're going to do is, as you see here, we can't even put a diffuse in. Now, diffuse is like the main texture, because we're using like an unlit default, like everything. We can only have these options. So to tweak these options to be like for what we would expect to be normal, you either have to make your own lighting, which we're going to do in a different video, or you can use preset. So if you look on here, we've got all the settings here, which you don't have in shader graph as far as I'm aware. You can tweak culling and everything, where normally you'd have to maybe go into the shader after you've done it and tweak it. There's actually a lot you can change here. I haven't looked at all of it, but for lighting, we've got some. So here we go. This expects you to use custom lighting or just not have any. So we're going to use one of these two here. Now, I don't really know the difference. They both look very similar when I've used them. They don't affect the nodes either, but we're just going to use this one. The second one, the blend thong. Close that. And now we can use diffuse, specular, whatever. So obviously this video is just teaching us set up. So I'll show you a quick like how to make like the standard shader basically. So what you can do is you can hold a key, so like A, and you get all of the A related things, whether it's maths related or like input related with texture or whatever. So if I want to put in a texture, I can hold T, and I got texture 2D. Now if it's green, it means that you're actually able to see it in the inspector. So if I put texture 2D, it's a texture node, and as you see, it's called node whatever. Now, like in shader graph, when you make a new node that's public, well by public I mean that you can edit with properties, it gives you a stupid name output. Now I think in the newer versions of shader graph you can actually tweak it, but you can just do it here. So obviously I can just put like main texture, and that actually all your properties show here when you've got them. So what we'll do is we'll say, okay, we'll select our main texture, and we'll just go for what's a good like just texture to use to show this. I should have probably just imported something good to use. We'll use this noise. That's probably not the best thing to use actually. We'll use this given like concrete floor looking thing. So obviously this is just a texture. It has pixels along it, and each pixel has its own color value, and you can access the RGBA as all three, or you can access just the red value, just the green, just the blue, just the alpha. So we're going to output the RGBA onto the diffuse. And as you see, instantly, right away, you actually get, I don't know why it's got an orange thing in the bottom left. Maybe it's just like a light. That's interesting. But as yeah, so tick rotate, you see it spinning all the way around. Now, oh, that's because, is that because I tweaked that color? No. Okay, that's just me being silly. But anyway, so we output the RGBA. And that just means that, as you see, let's just go and make a material tutorial 01. Oops. Oh. There you go, change it. 01. We're going to put this on here and then put this on the sphere. And then as you see, the material on the sphere is now this one. And you can open it in Shader Forge, you can open the code, and so on. You can edit the things there, so obviously you can change tiling and whatever, but you want it to be seamless. So as you see here, this is just what you'd expect a normal material to be like when you chuck it on something. If you had the normal map for it, which they might give us, we'll see. So if we go for N, normal, actually no, we don't have to put normal. We just have to put another texture in, but put it to the normal. So texture 2D. Now if we go on select and we scroll down, oh, we've got a normal for it. So as you see, it's like the same texture, but it's got the what the normalized thing should look like for it. So if we output that to the normal, and I just call this like normal texture, you'll see, obviously on here it tells you actually what it reads it as. So rather than color, it reads it as a bump map. Let's just make sure this is all working in here. So we'll select the bump map. Is that the, yeah, that's it. So as you see now, if we bring some, if we disable the directional light and we spawn in an actual just like point light and bring it over here, you'll actually see that the light on the object, it might be quite hard to see with this texture, it's not the highest quality, but you can actually see a difference when you have it. So that's flat shaded, right? That's like, there's it's just flat color on it. Then this bump map tells it to read the light where all the bumps are. That's basically what the bump map's for. Now you can use the incorrect bump maps, it'll look weird. But as you see, it actually looks like it's got some depth to it now, even though it hasn't. It's like a trick. That's the normal maps are there to make it look like stuff has depth and chiseled details when it doesn't actually, because it would just make the object have more vertices and like detail and file size, and it would be annoying. Now, just a quick example of what you can do. This is just like a silly, quick example. Well, it's not silly, but you can add a color node, so color, like so, and we'll just call it texture color. I'm always going to be spelling color the English way, by the way, the British English way, with a U. But anyway, so we're going to take this. Now, as you know, this outputs an RGBA, because it's the RGBA values of each pixel. And this is going to output the RGBA of whatever color we choose. So what you can do is you can multiply. You don't want to add for this because it look a bit odd. You want to multiply the RGBA from here by the RGBA from here, and have that as the diffuse. So that now what we can do is we can tweak this color to tweak the tinting of this. Because what it's doing is, if you don't know how multiplication works in terms of pixel color, let's say you have a value of 1 for red, even though it's probably 255, because that's how it usually works, because it's a range. Well, let's say you have, or sometimes it's 0 to 1, sometimes it's 0 to 255. So if you have a 1 for red, it means you are complete red. You've got like the most red value you can have, right? So the most red you can have. And then if you multiply that by a white pixel on here, what it'll mean is it'll be like, well, we're timesing 1 by 0, so no, sorry, by a white pixel, so it's 1 times 1, so you get pure red. So any pixel on there that is white, outcomes on here is pure red right now. But if any pixel on there is black, like actually a black pixel, it will come out on here as black, regardless of us having a red thing, and then all the values in between will be whatever. It's because you're multiplying the value of the pixel, because all pixels are just number values. So if you've got a 0 for a black pixel, no matter what you multiply 0 by, it's going to be 0. So black pixels will never change color by a color input, unless you do add, because additive is different. Additive will, add the values. And when you add values, you can go over the max, I'm pretty sure, which just gives you weird looking things and stupid colors. But you'll see, like, let's just go put the normal map on. There we go. So now we've got the normal map on it and our chosen color. If you put it back to black, then obviously all the pixels are now like times from this by 0. So it's just black. But if you times it by white, they're all times by 1. And if you times a number by 1, you get itself. That's why it looks like the original texture. And then obviously all the values in between, whatever. So I hope this was a quick, a good enough quick introduction to this and how to get started. And obviously I'm gonna make these videos for quite a bit. They're actually, I really like making them, and it's just cool to see what you can make with it. Obviously, go have a look around. You can go for each button and get all these different things and whatever. There's all the different values you can get by pressing the letter keys on your keyboard. The actual website has some good documentation for like all the nodes. It's a bit annoying that, so as you see, all the way down here. Ooh, there's a lot. For some reason, I might actually look it up unless someone has the answer in the comments. Usually, you're meant to have like a drop-down thing at the... Oh, wait. No. There should be a bar down the right saying with all the nodes, but you can still access them just by pressing the buttons if you know what you're looking for. I don't know if it's in here, actually. Oh, it is. I'm just silly. Okay, well, that's nice. Okay, yeah. Anyway, so turn that on, that's helpful. Now you can actually access them all without having to search it and know what they all are, but I knew the ones I was using anyway, so it's fine. Obviously, you can tweak the preview in here as well, so you can be like, yeah, I want red to be a 1 for testing, there, whatever. And then that's fine. So, anyway, I hope you like this video, and I hope you, if you've seen my older videos, I hope you realize why this is better. If we literally just open the shader code, I'll just open it in Visual Studio. It looks like an actual shader, right? Like CG program, all the things you need, all the functions, all the values. I know it might look complicated, but it's actually readable, because all the other stuff wasn't readable at all. Now, obviously, this is to do with lighting, because we used a default lighting. We used like a pre-made lighting calculation thing rather than making our own, because obviously you can make custom, like, you can make the object read lighting in a custom way to get your own like stylized lighting effect. But as you see here, obviously I'm not going to go for every line right now, I don't have time, but these are the values we bring in. This is what a vertex, all the data on a vertex is. A vertice. If you've used structs before, you'll know it's just basically an object that stores multiple bits of data. And this is what a vertice stores. And then this is the vertex function that calculates where the vertex, the vertice is meant to be. Obviously, at the moment, it doesn't really do anything because we've not got any vertex offsets, so it just returns as normal. But it also returns data on the vertices, which is useful for, sorry, my throat is going. I should really end the video off now. But yeah, just read through the code. It's pretty well made. Obviously, he's actually got it to include commenting. So obviously, final color just says this is what it actually outputs. So final color by 1. 1 just being because it's presumably the one here is that it's alpha is 1 because we can't tweak transparency on it. We haven't actually given it the ability to tweak transparency as far as I'm aware. Yeah, we can't tweak transparency at the moment, but we can add that next time when we start doing more adventurous things. So I will do a few basic videos at first just to cover, you know, lighting and shadows and tweaking custom things. But then I'll go on to taking requests. So like, how do you make this in shader thingy? Now, I'm not an expert. I can't make everything, otherwise, you know, go hire me. So I'm gonna learn along the way, like the more complex things. But for the most part, I'll be able to do quite a lot of it. For you anyway. So obviously feel free to leave suggestions, but don't demand like I need this and then, you know, don't expect it the next day or anything. But, you know, I'll make these videos. It's really useful. If you have any problems installing and setting up, then just leave a comment, but you shouldn't. But anyway, if you haven't already, join our Discord server. Obviously leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more of these. Hope to see you around. Thanks for watching and goodbye.